was born with a very rare genetic condition.
Mm-hmm.
It's called osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a very rare genetic condition, and it's characterized by bones that break without any trauma. By the age of 14, I had broken legs 6 times. When I started to present with injuries and broken bones, my mum was questioned. She's like, "Are you abusing your child?" Because at the time I didn't have a diagnosis. I didn't realise the privilege of having a diagnosis and what that means. My mum was told that I was born with this condition because she ate the wrong things, because she worked too hard throughout the pregnancy. In addition to the comments about, blaming my mum, it would always start with, "But not only have you had another daughter, but on top of that, she's disabled." No one encouraged me to work. I was actively encouraged to live a life on benefits. Even though I can work, I could work, and I wanted to work. I wanted to contribute to society. It's hard being judged on your ability when you can't change that. Knowing that I will never get certain opportunities, or people won't ever consider me for things just because they have a bias towards some of my characteristics that make me who I am, that I had no control over choosing. Oh my God, I'm not a crier at all.
Shani, welcome to Millennial Mind.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I connected with you a long time ago, actually. And I think a lot of people, when they see my guest, they think, we've spoken last week and then you've come on. But you were someone that I feel so inspired by, and I just love everything you're doing. And I've been wanting to speak to you for so long. So I'm very, very, very grateful that you're here today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
And you spent a long time getting here as well. So I'm very grateful that you took the time out for me today. So for people who don't know you, I want to go into I want to start with, exactly what you do, because you've been named the UK's highest profile and most influential disability activist. You've been in the BBC 100 Women's List in 2022, and in CEO magazine, you are the world's leading change maker that we should all keep an eye on in 2022, which are all incredible titles. And you actually have more. I just couldn't fit them on this piece of paper. So I want to start with your story and exactly where this all began.
Sure. And I think sometimes when people hear all of that, I think it's really easy to assume that someone perhaps like me has had a really easy ride or a really easy life. But actually, everything I'm doing and everything that you've just read out there has been born out of constantly being discriminated against, constantly facing oppression, and actually wanting to do something about it and change that. And what I've come to realise, it's been a way for me to channel my frustration and my anger.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. And it's kind of the same for the podcast, if I'm honest. A lot of the things that people are like, I resonate with you so much on that. A lot of the things I'm talking about have been hard things that have happened to me. I've had to reflect, and I'm essentially channeling my anger to share it on a platform in which it's not so direct at someone individually, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that resonates so much, and I love that you're trying to change this, and I think it really needs to happen. So I want to start off with your childhood.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it.
So I was born in Birmingham. I'm very proud for me. In a big South Asian family. I'm Sikh, Punjabi, and I always talk about that because that's a big part of who I am. It's defined me as a person as well as my values and morals. I was born with a very rare genetic condition. It's called osteogenesis imperfecta.
Okay.
And I can spell it.
I definitely can't, don't ask me.
But essentially, it's a very rare genetic condition. And it's characterized by bones that break without any trauma. So by the age of 14, I had broken legs 6 times. And I know you're gasping, and people often do, but people with my condition actually break between 300 to 400 times in their life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so although it's a very difficult and unpredictable condition to live with, I also feel this huge sense of gratitude. I've only had 6 breaks to this date. It's also the reason why I have a short stature.
Okay.
And although it's a genetic condition, it doesn't run in my family. So I'm what's called a spontaneous mutation, which is fun to be.
Okay.
But disability faces a really huge further sense of stigma in South Asian communities. So I've had to, navigate lots of different challenging scenarios, situations, circumstances, starting from my own family home to the wider community. And I actually went to a special needs primary school.
Right.
Because back in the early 90s, that's what inclusion was in education. And don't get me wrong, it perhaps was the right decision in terms of the physical care that I needed. But it wasn't until I went to a mainstream secondary school did I realise actually
it's not.
It wasn't the right place for my learning needs. I felt like I didn't know the basics. And, when you're as brittle as, you can cough and break a rib, my life was, I was wrapped up in cotton wool, and I don't blame anyone for wanting to do that. I'd probably do the same if, my child had brittle bones. So I had a lot of time off because I was breaking, and then I'd have to recover, then I'd have to learn how to walk again. And then the following summer, I'd do it all again. I'd break. And, it was nothing ever traumatic, as a reason why I would break. Once someone, my auntie just lifted me up under the arms and my leg just broke. It's like...
Was it painful?
Massively painful, yeah. But me and my mum had got into this routine that I wouldn't even need to have an x-ray to know it was broken.
Oh my gosh, you just know.
I'd fall over, she's like, is it broken? And I'm like, yeah. Like screaming
Became
there
your
in
own
pain.
doctor.
But you know what? My mum is the reason I am who I am today. She never once called an ambulance. She said somebody else needs it more than you. So even though I was there with a broken leg, crying in pain, she'd pick me up, put me in the car and drive me to hospital.
That is amazing.
And at the time I was like, okay.
Yeah, Mom, why don't you love me? Yeah, I'd do the same, yeah.
But she's just been an eternal source of inspiration and strength to me. Not just because of that, but because of many other things. But also, my mum never treated me any differently from my siblings.
You're making me cry because you're getting emotional.
I know. She never treated me any differently. And again, that's one of the biggest things I want to say thanks to my mum for, because if she had treated me differently, she wouldn't have been setting me up to live in this very inaccessible and ableist world.
Yeah.
I remember being in plaster, recovering after a broken leg. She'd just, give me the pile of laundry to fold. She's like, you're not getting away with it. Yeah. And at the time I was like, oh my God, something mean to me. But I'm so grateful, for the things that she's taught me. Yeah. And also, when I was younger, the word, I couldn't say to her, I can't do this. She's like, there's no such word as can't. Can't is banned in this house. She's like, you can and you will, and you'll just always find another way of doing it.
Wow.
So at the time, don't get me wrong, I did think she was a very strict mother, a very strict authoritarian parent, especially in comparison to my dad, who wasn't authoritarian at all. But now I can only thank her for everything and for the way in which she decided to raise me. And it was hard for her. There was nobody else in my community that was in a similar situation.
It's so touching what you've just said, and you made me really emotional because I can see how much you really love your mom. And what's interesting, I think, when we get older, we then start to see our parents' perspectives, don't we? And when you have one parent who's soft and another parent who's strong, you always categorize them as good and bad. And it's the same with me. My dad is really strong, really strict, always be the hardest on me. And my mum is really soft, and always, whatever I said, she'd be like, you're doing amazing. You're incredible. You can do it. And growing up, and I'm still in that phase a little bit of to my dad, why don't you get it? Why don't you understand it? My mum, when I quit my job, was very easily okay, sure. And my dad was very much talking me through the logistics. Well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And as we had that conversation, my natural thought was, he's so strict. And I knew he'd never do that. I knew he'd never support me, or, always go to that defense mechanism. Because my whole life, he'd always be the one that would be really strict on my grades, really strict on me going to a good uni, really strict on me working hard. And my mum was always like, it's okay. And actually this time, I really appreciated my dad giving me all of those things because I realized he's just looking out for me.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you realize that it's great to have two parents like that.
Yeah.
One that supports you in everything you do, so they're like your number one believer, and the other who's protecting you, and the other one who's not going to let you fail, and the other one who, when you run an idea past them, you better have every answer in the world because they're going to throw it at you.
Yeah.
And I only think with age that comes where you start to understand the strength of having both of those parents.
And quite often, I often talk about my mom, especially when I talk about my childhood, because she was, you know, my main caregiver, as many mothers are. However, I also learnt so much from my dad too, and still do.
Yeah.
So my dad is a big Sikh activist, and in our childhood, it was very normal for us to go on a weekend to a protest. So he taught me that you should use your voice for others when you can. And I always think, you know, the work that I'm doing now, would I ever have done it if I wasn't, if my dad didn't teach me those things, or if I didn't see him do that, if I didn't see him use his time, his money. Also, you know, putting other people before his family, which is hard for me to say as a daughter.
Of course.
And, you know, I hear it from my mum's side as well. She's like, sometimes I've just felt like a single parent. But he's so strong in his belief and wants to advocate on behalf of others. And I've taken so much from him too. So props to Dad as well. As I've gotten older, I've often, you know, asked my mum what it was like for her when she found out, you know, I had this condition, and what it was like for her, because my mum had a very different experience from my dad.
Right.
And as I said, you know, it's nobody's fault, or there was no indication that I was going to be born with this condition. And I even said, I was like, you know, if it was picked up in a scan, what would you have done?
Yeah.
She's like, no, you know, I would have carried on with the pregnancy. And, you know, each to their own. I'm not trying to here to vilify anyone that wants to choose not to. Everybody's circumstances are different. And I have a younger brother. So I said to my mum, I said, I was born with this condition, but then you had another child.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you do that? She's like, well, if your brother had that condition, then however I've looked after you, I would have looked after him as well.
Your mum is just, honestly, we should have brought her on the podcast.
Oh, I'd love to. I was like, Mum, are you sure you just didn't want a boy?
Yeah, yeah.
But she's like, no, that I wasn't bothered about that.
So what age were you diagnosed?
So I didn't get a diagnosis until I was 2 years old. So when I was born, the doctors could tell something wasn't quite right. And they sort of said to my parents, something's not right, but, you know, we'll be in touch, take her home.
Okay.
And I can't imagine what it must have been like for my parents, you know.
That's really difficult. Not knowing.
Not knowing, and also not knowing how to care for me in the best way. I've got brittle bones. Could you imagine if I could have probably gone home with broken bones? Because if you think of how traumatic birth is, many children are born with broken bones when brittle bones is detected in the womb.
Right.
That could have been me. And then when I started to present with injuries and broken bones, my mum was questioned. She's like, are you abusing your child? Because at the time I didn't have a diagnosis.
Of course. I never thought about that.
So, and actually, for me as an adult, I didn't realise the privilege of having a diagnosis and what that means, because even my GP is a bit stumped on my condition. I have to go to very specialist consultants who I get to see perhaps once a year.
Right.
And then when I presented with my very rare condition and COVID, people were like, well, we really don't know what to do with you now. And quite often when I see medical professionals, I often have to educate them.
My gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I had to go to Great Ormond Street at the age of 2. That's when I got my diagnosis. And even then, my parents didn't really get the answers, you know, that they wanted. That they were just told she's got this condition. We can't really say what she will or won't be able to do. You know, you just have to take it all one day at a time. But I think having a diagnosis for any condition is a real privilege. I can Google my condition. It's meant I've been able to connect with others that are living with it. Those people have become my second family.
Yeah.
You know, I can talk to them and not have to explain the backstory because they just get it.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how amazing that feeling is.
That's so powerful. I never, you know, I think so many of us don't even understand.
No.
right?
Yeah.
How what you've just said, it's such a privilege.
It is.
And you can connect with people and you can create that community and you have people to fall back on who just understand where you're coming from. Recently, I spoke to someone and they lost their parent. And they said, nobody gets it apart from the people who have lost their specific parent. She was like, not even if you've lost your mum.
Yeah.
If you've lost your dad, you won't get it.
Yeah.
If you've lost your dad and you haven't, and someone's lost their mum, they don't get it. And it's like, for people going through something, having people who are going through the same thing doesn't compare, you know?
You know, even though my family and my siblings have lived this as much as me,
Yes,
they
they
still
don't
don't
get
get
it.
it as
Of
much as
course.
somebody else would get it living with my condition.
That's so true.
And I think this just comes back to mindset as well. Like, people often ask me, like, why are you always so happy? Why are you always so optimistic? It's kind of like, I feel like I'm being questioned as to how I have the audacity.
Like,
to
why
live-
not?
Yeah. I feel like I'm being questioned how I have the audacity to live the life that I'm living. But it's because I chose to. It's because I fought to. And it's because I've had the courage to. Because I wasn't being encouraged to live this life. Let's take into consideration everything. I'm a South Asian woman who experiences disability. There's oppression on top of oppression on top of oppression. I've realised that people judge my ability based on my appearance. I'm very much in the public eye now. I get trolled and harassed a lot. There's even a hierarchy to that. People first comment on my disability, then they'll comment on my ethnicity, and then if they ever get round to it, my gender. But if I was a non-disabled white woman, that person would probably only get trolled based on their gender, as we see happen. So when I explain it like that, people think, oh yeah, I never thought of it like that. But that's my reality.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You're right. I have never thought of it like
Yeah.
that. And thank you so much for explaining that. But I want to touch on one thing you said in the beginning, because there's so much I want to talk about, everything you're doing. You said your mum and your dad faced very different comments around your disability, and your mum was blamed
Yeah.
and your dad wasn't.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so I think this is very typical of certain attitudes in the South Asian community. My mum was told that I was born with this condition because she ate the wrong things, because she worked too hard throughout the pregnancy. And then I just thought, well, why has no one ever said this to my dad? And I think, you know, it probably has to do with something that my mum was the one who was pregnant.
Yeah.
But how do we know that? I might have this condition because of something to do with my dad's genes. We don't know.
It's so interesting you just said, like, the oppression on top of oppression on top of oppression. One of them is being a woman.
Yeah.
Right? And when I upload videos around things from a female perspective, because I am female, so I'm going to say my perspective, people are like, you're not talking about men. And I'm like, I'm talking about my own perspective. And then the other comments are, this doesn't even happen anymore. What are you talking about?
Oh,
This doesn't
I get that
happen.
too.
And I'm like, you're a man, who's a white man who's commenting on my photos. Like, where's the logic in this?
Do you know what people write and like troll me with all the time? You've got a victim mentality. I'm
Oh
like,
my
mate,
God.
if you knew me, I'm the last person to have a victim mentality. And if one day I want to feel sorry for myself,
I
I'm
will.
able to.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard it is to live in a world that isn't designed for you?
Yeah.
On top of then facing negative attitudes. But I don't have a victim mentality. Otherwise, I wouldn't be the person I am today. But the worst thing is when people don't believe you. Why would I sit here and make this stuff up?
Believe you about what?
My experiences. They don't believe that, you know, disabled people are twice as likely to be unemployed. People don't believe that I had to apply for more than 100 jobs before removing any mention of my condition. And then I got an interview.
People say you're lying about it.
I'm lying. Why would I lie? But I think
Why would you
time.
exactly? What? And also, someone can proof check that very quickly, right? So it's not very.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really interesting the point you said around how your mum was blamed, because I think the hardest thing from my perspective to ever absorb is when I hear someone talking about a miscarriage, when I hear someone talking about how they've had a disabled child, when I hear someone talking about an experience that is absolutely not their fault, and they are blamed. So I remember speaking to someone around miscarriages, and they said that when they had miscarried, someone had said to them, it's because you were going to the gym too much. Or like you said, you weren't eating the right foods.
Yeah.
Or, you're so stressed, you were working all the time. Now, let me just say this one thing. If anyone out there has said this to someone, well, not only is it none of your business, and your advice and your logic and your psychoanalysis of why something has happened is irrational and completely irrelevant and has no science behind it, but it's unbelievably hurtful to tell someone that they have miscarried, whether you think they climbed Mount Everest or not, whether they did or not, whether they climbed a mountain. If they've had some miscarriage and they're suffering, do not give your opinion on why you think it's happened. If something has happened where something that is completely, like you said, a genetic disorder or anything to do with a disability or anything, even if you're a doctor, don't give your opinion, because it's very difficult to take the blame for something that is completely out of your control.
And this is the thing that I don't understand is like, at this time, my parents didn't have a diagnosis. In addition to the comments about, blaming my mom, it would always start with, not only have you had another daughter.
No.
Yeah, so, because I have an older sister.
You're joking.
So it would be, the gender preference at play within the South Asian community. But on top of, not only have you had another daughter, but on top of that, she's disabled. Like, the very average...
Who says that?
Exactly. Like, how is it helpful? Why would you say that? Even if you think it.
Yeah, just keep it to yourself. Yeah, honestly.
And this is what makes me really sad when I think about what my parents, especially my mum, had to go through. And as well, going through it alone. And I don't understand it. But the common feeling for a parent when they find out that their child is born with a condition or an impairment is a feeling of grief, is a feeling of unknown, is a feeling of hopelessness.
Yeah.
And then they're met with these comments. So don't do it.
You're so right. And automatically, when I haven't had a child, but I think the way I feel about my nieces and nephews, they're like my children. Right. And if something happened to them and I was in care of them, let's just say, you'd blame yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think automatically you're already blaming yourself when something has happened. And people say this around a miscarriage, you're already thinking about when you've miscarried, like what could I have done? Yeah. Like, why has this happened? And miscarriage is in 1 in 4 women. You know, it's very common. But it's still the hardest thing, I think, when you go through it the first time, given from other people's experiences. Obviously, I haven't had my own. But, I sympathize so much because it's when something has happened in your body, like you said, comments weren't said to your dad, it's happened in your mum's body.
Yeah.
And naturally, as a woman, I think we definitely blame ourselves for so much. A lot of us have grown up with a lot of guilt. Yeah. A lot of us have grown up with a constant feeling of what could we have done differently? What could we have said differently? And I think it's very normal in that moment to blame yourself.
But also there's a very patriarchal lens to this, because even in our community, when girls are born, women are still blamed when it's the man's sperm that defines the gender or the reproductive organs that child's going to have.
I mean, I can't say I've experienced that though, because in my family, when we've had girls or when people have had girls or boys, I've never actually heard anybody say that. I've heard it from stories, people tell me, but because I haven't really experienced it myself, I think I'm just so mortified and shocked, and I actually can't believe it. If I heard someone say that, I think I would absolutely flip.
Oh, it's still very much prevalent and alive and kicking in South Asian communities, and it's one of the reasons why I set up Asian Woman Festival. I want to help South Asian women be activists of their own future, because not all South Asian women are encouraged to know how to and know how to navigate certain things. I know I certainly didn't. So I just want to pay that forward and help with this.
It's amazing what you've done even with that, but with so many other things. You're on Loose Women, you're on Jeremy Vine, you're on BBC. I see you everywhere. And I think it's so incredible that you're really representing the South Asian women. I love that. I think it's so powerful and we need more of it.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about how you kind of got there in the first place. So you mentioned you went to a special needs school.
Yes.
For primary school, right?
Yeah.
And then you went into a mainstream school for a secondary school.
Yeah. And
then for sixth form?
So I went to college, but when I was leaving secondary school, you have like this 15-minute careers advisor appointment.
Yes.
Well, mine was terrible. So I was a full-time wheelchair user up until the age of 16. And the appointment went a little bit like this. They just said, your local council likes to employ disabled people, so why don't you just try and get a job there? And I came away from that thinking, nobody's asked me what I want to do. Nobody's asked me what my interests are. They've literally just treated me as a tick box exercise. And I came away from that thinking, okay, that just must be that person's perspective.
Yes.
Not everyone
Everyone's gonna
surely
be like
thinks that. But boy, did I have the biggest reality shock of my life. So I left secondary school, had 11 GCSEs. I'm so proud of that because I didn't think I'd get any GCSEs or any good grades. I struggled so hard with education. I'm not academic at all, and I never ever thought I'd go to uni. And when people ask me what my biggest achievement in his life, it's graduating from uni. Again, I never thought I'd go. I was never encouraged to. So the fact I've graduated is my biggest personal achievement. I've spoken at events with Michelle Obama. I've spoken on stages with Hillary Clinton. I've done some really cool stuff, but graduating is my biggest achievement, and
That's
probably
amazing.
always will be. But as a child living with this condition and breaking constantly, I didn't have time to think about what my adult life would look like. So I had some surgeries, so I have metal rods in my legs. I have also had treatments, and that's really helped to improve the quality of my life. I love the NHS. I wouldn't be here without it. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't know what my life would look like. So I didn't know what I wanted to do either. And I was so envious of everybody else who knew what they wanted to study, who knew what jobs they wanted to go to. And I just felt like I was just kind of coasting through because no one encouraged me to work. I was actively encouraged to live a life on benefits. Even though I can work, I could work, and I wanted to work. I wanted to contribute to society, but people could see how difficult it was for me to get a job. And I don't think people were saying that in a malicious way.
Okay.
I think they were just they're just saying it in to be kind. And it was the people closest to me as well, so they knew what I was capable of. But as I mentioned, so I left secondary school, went to college, studied early years. I became a nursery nurse. Okay. But within that time, I wanted part-time work. So 16 was a very pivotal age for me. I'd stopped breaking.
Wow.
I was finally able to go out on my own. I caught the bus for the first time on my own. These are really big things for someone who lives with a condition where their bones break without any trauma and their life just has to go on pause. So, naturally, I wanted to earn money. I wanted to be out there. But it wasn't until I removed any mention of my condition from over 100 applications was I then offered an interview, and then I got a job straight away.
So tell me about that process. So you'd apply for jobs. What kind of jobs were you looking for?
So I'd be very limited in the type of jobs I could apply for. So,
right.
My friends would be applying for waitressing jobs. I knew I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
They'd be like admin-based, office-based jobs.
Okay.
So I was already reduced to what I could apply for, which made the process even longer. And I'd have one sentence on there that said, I've got a condition, but it doesn't affect my ability to do this role. And when I think back, I think, why did I put that on there? One, I was very naive. I didn't realise there was so much stigma against employing disabled people. I wasn't prepared for that. Secondly, I have a very visible condition. I'm 3'10" in height.
Mm-hmm.
I know the shock that people have perhaps when they first initially meet me, and people can feel a bit awkward. So I was actually doing it to help my prospective employer feel less awkward, but that went against me.
First of all, I just think you're so inspiring. I'm actually lost for words. I can't believe how driven, how motivated, how focused you were from such a young age. Because I think of myself.
Do you see how I've had to be?
Yeah.
Because what was the alternative otherwise? And that experience of not being able to get a job, it left me feeling the most hopeless I've ever felt ever in my life. It's hard living with my condition. It's hard learning how to walk again 7 times and knowing it's probably not going to be the last time I'm going to have to do this. But it's hard. It's hard being judged on your ability when you can't change that. It's hard knowing that I will never get certain opportunities, or people won't ever consider me for things just because they have a bias towards some of my characteristics that make me who I am, that I had no control over choosing, but sadly are what going to define my life opportunities, and it's why I'm doing the work that I do.
Honestly, I really am lost for words. I feel that your maturity at such a young age as well, you know, I think
Grow up so young.
so young.
Do you know, at 16 I was asked, you gonna have kids one day? Do you want kids? Like, I was so infantilized as a young woman. I wasn't ready to be asked those questions. And that's why, you know, I'm a massive advocate of any approach to inclusion. It has to be intersectional. If medical professionals really understood the discourse of disability in South Asian communities, they'd know perhaps how to have that conversation differently. I was just, oh my God, they're asking me this in front of my mum. This is really awkward. Even though I love my mum, we're like close. Like, we have mine and my mum's relationship is one of like best friends.
Yeah.
Not really of mother and daughter.
Same.
And even though we have that relationship, I wasn't ready to have that conversation in front of her at that time.
Who would be?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It blew me away.
It's crazy.
Oh,
Who would think
like,
they could
you're the
ask
first
that?
person to ask me that, because again, no one's spoken to me about marriage. No one's really spoken to me about having kids. And I must be the only South Asian woman to not be hassled to get married. And on one hand, I'm so glad. But then on the other hand, I'm like, why are you still
not?
othering me?
Yes.
Why do you think I don't have the same needs and desires as everybody else? Because I do.
Well, I have loads of aunties that will love to ask you that question. So I'll make sure that they call you and let you know. And if not, Shani, I'll go against all the grain that I've said. I'll go against all my videos and I'll call you every day and ask you, okay? But it's crazy to think that, right? That you're treated so differently by other people. I feel like your mum has really made you so strong. And I love the way that she has just... I listened to him on one of your other podcasts. You know, you still get whooped. She'll still be like, you need to do the dishes. You need to do, it doesn't matter about anything. You need to get it done. And
do you think they care I'm on lease? To be honest, right, people only started to rate me within my own family when I got on EastEnders. And I think it's like the most...
Oh my God, I want to watch the episode.
Yeah.
When were you on it?
It was last year.
Okay.
I am a massive EastEnders fan.
I was when I was younger. Then I failed my GCSE, so I was banned from watching it.
Really?
But it's okay. I mean,
My
I'm still
life
allowed
would
to
be
watch it
over.
now.
Okay.
But my parents watch it strictly 8 o'clock on a Monday.
Right.
Yeah, 7:30 on the other days. I
No,
don't know.
it's on now. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They've changed the scheduling.
Okay.
But I'm a massive EastEnders fan, and I'm not an actress, but I had this opportunity. I went for it. I got the audition out, and I didn't think I'd get the role. It's just a very small part with lines, though, and it's part of a really big storyline. I'm not joking. You know, I've said I've done some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I've spoken at the UN. I've spoken with Michelle Obama. No one rated that. When I was in EastEnders, people rated. But in a way, I like that my family and my friends keep me grounded.
Yeah.
Especially my niece and nephew. They're like, Mossy.
What do you do?
Yeah, Mossy, what do you do?
Yeah.
Mossy, like, are you coming? I need you to be here for this. And again, like you said earlier, you've got lots of nieces and nephews. Like, they're my kids too.
Yeah, right.
They're begging, especially my niece. She's like, "When are you going to adopt me, Mossy?" So that, and I'm really comfortable with the fact that I haven't had kids. And actually, I don't think I could look after kids. I can just about look after myself. Like, don't get me wrong, I love kids. I've worked with kids. I've been a nursery nurse. Kids love me.
Yes.
I think it's because we're the same height. But I can like feed them and buy things and drive, and like no one else their height can do that. So, but I'm really grateful that my sister just gave me the opportunity to be a second mom to them. She just like dropped them off at my house and leave them for the week. I loved it. So I don't feel like I've missed out. I got to have that really hands-on experience. And
well, it's the best experience when you have nieces and nephews, because you get them for their great times, then they get cranky, and then my cousins take them away, which is lovely, and then we play with them when they're kids, and then when they turn into annoying teenagers like I was, and you have to go through schooling and parenting and puberty and all that rubbish, I won't need to do it. But I mean, I would like to have kids. I think, you know, the way I speak sometimes on the podcast and give a different perspective, people think I'm anti-marriage and anti-kids, which I'm absolutely not. I'm just not ready for it right now, and that's okay.
And,
you know?
and, you know, like, people enter marriages thinking, you know, I'm going to have a great day, I'm going to have a nice dress, it's going to be a big party. And you know what I say to my friends and family? it's the biggest legal and financial commitment you are ever going to make.
Massive.
I'm the one that brings it down to reality. But I just don't think people think about it like this.
They do not.
Especially in our community. And let's not forget, the cost of an average wedding in the South Asian community is literally like £100,000.
Literally did a podcast on that, about how ridiculous it is.
So I always bring that element to it. It's not something that should be entered into lightly.
Marriage is something that if you truly want to get married to that person, only then you should do it. Because, and I think this is my point about when I speak about not rushing, when I speak about when I speak about thinking about it, when I speak about thinking about your future with that person, people think I'm anti-marriage, and I'm absolutely not. I believe in marriage 100% if it is right for you.
Yeah.
For me, I would like to get married and have kids, but I do not have to do all these things by a particular deadline. I'm going to turn 30 next year. If I'm not married, I am still okay. Everything is okay. My whole world is not going to come crashing down like everyone tells me. If I don't have kids in the next 3 years, I will be okay. Everything will work out in its time and its place. And I'm a big believer in that. I think, you know, so many of us rush to fit these timelines. Absolutely. Go to school, go to university, go to find a boyfriend, get engaged, get married, have kids. And then what? What's the timeline? You die? Like, what is the timeline after that? And I just feel that, like, these timelines are so strict and rigid because after you have kids, then what is the next thing? You have grandkids? Okay, what's the next thing? There's so much in life that happens in between. But in between those things, you don't genuinely have kids, have grandkids, and then you pass away. Right? There's so much beautiful, like, life that happens in between those timelines. And you don't have to do it in that order. You could literally go to school, not get a job, get married, have kids, not have kids. Some people don't want to have children. And we need to stop this pressure of what's wrong. Oh, no.
Or when someone's got married, the next thing they'll be asked is, oh, when are you having kids? And, you know, I've spoken very publicly about my feeling towards me having kids. You know, I've got a rare condition. That's something to consider because there's a high probability I'd pass that on. I also have to think about the physical impact of birth. Like I'm just not doing it. But what always sort of comes out of the blue for me is when people think I'm really at peace with the decision or that it was easy for me to make. So even friends will be like, I know you don't want to have kids, but and I'm just like, whoa. I'm just like, well, it's not that I don't. I love kids, and you know, perhaps if I was in a relationship or you know something different, I'd so be up for adoption if that other person really wanted kids.
Right.
But for me, that's not a priority. For me, I need to be able to look after myself first and foremost. My mobility is the best it's going to be. Every day it's only deteriorating. I know that I will be a lot less mobile when I'm older. I don't really want to be looking after somebody else and all that. No. But when other people speak about it so flippantly, as if I've reached that decision so easily and so emotionlessly, it's not. It's been a journey. It's been a lot that I've had to process along the way as well. So I just want to say, like, whether for whatever reason you're talking to anybody else about kids or marriage, just be mindful of how we're talking about these things and how we're coming across.
It's so true. You know, I said that in my video as well around the hardest thing I find is, you know, if you're in a relationship and you're not married, people always think there's something wrong. People always ask me, well, what's wrong? And the hardest thing is when people say, you know, men know within 3 months. You know, women always have a feeling. When I met this person, I knew instantly. And I'm like, good for you. I just don't allow those comments to bother me anymore. I've become so immune to them. And I think this amazing community that I have here where I share this all the time really strengthens me to not allow any of those comments to bother me. And people message me all the time, you know, why does it not bother you? And I just think, you know, someone coming to me and saying, you know, I met my husband and I knew straight away. And I'm just like, that's great for you. Honestly, amazing. So happy that you're so happily married, that you're literally having so much interest in my life right now. Clearly, you know, if you're so happy, talk to your husband. Why are you talking to me? I mean, that's obviously not true. But, you know, I just feel that people who ask me so many times, well, something must be wrong. Nothing is wrong. It's my choice. And like how you said, you know, you don't know what that person is going through. And auntie, if there's something wrong in my relationship and I see you once a year, do you really think I'm going to tell you the reason I'm not getting married is because this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong?
But why do people feel that they have a right to know people's most private, personal, intimate things? Like, I don't know if this will surprise you, but people have asked me questions like random strangers on the street have asked me, what's your life expectancy? Can you have sex? Can you have kids? I'm like, you didn't even start with hello. Who are you? And why are you asking me this?
Oh my gosh.
How is any of that affecting you in your life?
I'm shocked. When you were saying, why do people feel like they can ask you so many deep questions? I was like, gosh, this is literally my role as a podcaster, isn't it? To like dive deep, but not questions like that.
No.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But what I don't understand is why do people feel that they have a free pass to ask one another those questions?
It's ridiculous.
I wouldn't ask my friends those questions.
Neither would I. Who asked somebody that? Gosh, get these people in front of me. I'll beat them up for you. I mean, I'm so weak anyway. My grandma beat me in an arm wrestle. Can you believe? Really? She's like 84. She thrashed me in an arm wrestle. But, you know, I think there's so much that you're doing in the community. There's so much you're doing on TV. There's so much you're doing on radio. You're everywhere. How did you get into the media space?
I never planned any of this. It's all happened really organically. I became a nurse, loved it, but decided I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. And then I went to uni and did a degree in event management because I really struggled to get a part-time job. I thought, how the hell am I ever going to get a proper job and have a career and be able to live independently and move out and travel and do all the things I want to do and live life on my terms? I know how fragile life is because that was the first 16 years of my life. And I made a promise to myself that I want to live without regret, and I don't want to let fear and just my own self-limiting beliefs stop me from living. And that's, I think, why I've had the courage to do the things I'm doing, because I'm not afraid to fail. If I fail at something, I'll have learned a lesson out of something. But you're never going to grow being comfortable.
Never. And
personally, like, I love being outside my comfort zone. Not at the time, but after, because I've changed as a person. I'm ready to do bigger and better things. So I decided I had to go to uni to have a degree to fall back on, because how else would people employ me? If people aren't employing me, you know, for a job I needed no qualifications for, you know, I thought I can't give anyone a reason to not hire me. So I left uni, not only with a degree, but 3 years of free work experience, because I thought I have to be better than everybody out there. I have to be better than everybody graduating that year. And I wouldn't have had that mindset if I didn't face all of those challenges. And then I was one of the first people in my graduating class to get a job as an event manager for a Royal Institute. And I spent 10 years in event management. Some of my clients included Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Floyd Mayweather. But that was all based on my very good friend, and he's like a brother to me, Andy Sahota, giving me an opportunity in events. Everyone around him told him not to. They sort of said, what's she going to be able to do? But actually, like, we've raised over £400,000 for charity. We've put on world-class events in our hometown of Birmingham. So, yeah, and we're actually now creating an internship for disabled people to get into event management.
Amazing.
So it's become full circle. We haven't launched it. We're launching in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
But so you heard it here first.
Yeah.
And then as an event manager, I was doing all of my disability advocacy and activism on the side. So I'd have a full-time job. I'd then be doing all my freelance events with Andy, and then I'd be doing all my activism on the side and trying to be a 20-something-year-old and travel. Yes. So it was becoming a lot, and I really wanted to get into this space because I realised there was no diversity in the representation of disabled people.
Right.
And I have to put this on record. There is so much white fragility in the disability community, and it's why I wanted to get involved and part of it and represent. Right. Because what I realised was growing up, I'd never seen any disabled people on screen. And then when I did, it was all of my white disabled counterparts, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing shade on them or hating them. But census data tells us there are more disabled people from Asian and black communities. So why haven't I seen those on my screen? And I'm 35 years old and I've still only seen 4 disabled people of colour on my screen. That doesn't include me.
You're the first one I've seen.
And I thought, I've experienced all these barriers. I've experienced all this negativity. I've grown up without that representation and I want to be part of the change. But then I think people think all the doors were opened and everyone was inviting me to their table.
Yeah.
That was not the case at all. People back then had no concept of inclusion, had no real concept of diversity. Like now, it's a booming industry. Back then, everyone thought it was really fluffy, a good CSR thing. And actually, some people probably still do think that.
Yep.
But now it's a very in-demand industry. People are hiring, inclusion directors and consultants like nobody's business, and that's great to see. However, people are forgetting that inclusion is everybody's responsibility. I see a lot of these roles. Loads of people approach me to take them, but actually, I know the change that I want to achieve, I can do through business and through media. That's why I'm a tech entrepreneur. It's why I've become a broadcaster. But again, it was never the plan. It's just all really happened organically. And I don't know if you see my LinkedIn advert.
No, I haven't.
So I was scrolling on LinkedIn one day.
Yeah.
And I saw a job at Virgin Media and it was for a disability program manager.
Right.
And I thought, this is my dream job.
Okay.
It combined all of the skill set that you needed to be a project and event manager and someone who knew about disability rights and disability advocacy. So when you see jobs and you think that job is for me.
It's for me, yeah.
But you don't ever get it.
Yeah.
Well, I got it.
That's amazing.
I got it. And, thinking back on this now, this was also a really pivotal moment in my life because it's what allowed me to move to London.
Right.
And London, sadly, is where all the opportunities are. So
I'm very glad you're here.
Don't get me wrong. I love living in London, but it's very inaccessible. It's very hard. And also, it was massively lonely. All my family and good friends are in Birmingham. So I've had to carve out a new life for myself. But I've been here 5 years and I'm loving it. I need it to be more accessible because it's really difficult.
Yeah, I can't believe you said that today on the train. You couldn't get the train here because it's so inaccessible. I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's massive, but that's under the podcast for another time.
Yeah.
So, and I love LinkedIn. It's always been a really accessible way for me to network because networking in a physical way is not always accessible. So it's a way and a platform I've always used to show people what I'm doing. It's really helped to demonstrate my credibility. And I can't tell you the amount of connections that I've made internationally and the opportunities that have come from it. LinkedIn approached me and I was one of the faces for their first ever TV advert in this country. And it's had over 17 million views. I was on the side of buses. I was on the tube turnstile.
No way.
It was unreal. And then I was in another partnership and I was a LinkedIn change maker. So at the time I was one of the UK's most influential members. I don't know if I am anymore.
I think you are, yeah.
So essentially this job at Virgin Media really helped me to turn my passion into a career.
That's amazing.
And then from then I've just added more things. And another thing I do a lot of is speaking.
Yeah.
And I hated public speaking when I was an event manager. I used to have to introduce events, thank speakers. I hated it. Hate it, yeah. But I now love speaking because I know I'm speaking about something that only I can tell a story about. I'm speaking about my personal experience. But I'm also educating people and I'm challenging people's mindsets. 100%. And I see people's eyes widen when I explain that it's not my condition that disables me. It's the way in which society is designed. It's the bias that people have. It's, and I speak about lots of different things, but, I didn't dream to be a speaker. People just approached me and said, "Oh, will you come and speak?"
Yes.
And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Just go along with it. And I didn't realise how much money you could make from being a speaker.
Yes, you
And then I
can.
realised, shit, I need to take this more seriously. So I invested a lot of time and effort and money into that, learning how to be the best speaker that I can be, learning about what my niche is in this space. And, I really want to get across to people. I don't just wake up one day and think, "Oh, today I'm going to do this," and then loose women knock on my door. It's not that at all. Everything is much harder for me. And yet people think that, "Oh, you only got that opportunity because you're disabled." People have said this to me, and it's the most soul destroying thing that people could say to me, because what that means is they've actually not appreciated how hard, not understood how hard it is. Not only just me as a disabled person, but I'm South Asian. I'm also a woman. Add all of that into that complexity. But they're like, "Oh yeah, you tick all the boxes, don't you? So of course they're gonna want you." No, I have to fight so much harder to be there. I have to work so much harder. I feel like I have to overcompensate when I'm there. And I don't think that feeling will ever change, because I know that the work I'm doing is more than my lifetime's worth of work. I know that the change I'm trying to advocate for perhaps will have an impact in 500 years' time. Look at the stats we hear now, what it's going to take to have gender equality. I dread to think about what the stats will be when it comes to disability equality or equality on ethnicity. And I've got all of that going on, as many other people do.
It's honestly absolutely crazy when I hear your story. And I just want to say, you're probably, I would say, genuinely the most inspiring person I've ever met.
Aww.
And this is probably one of my most eye-opening podcasts, because you are an unbelievable speaker. Unbelievable, actually. I think you articulate yourself so well. But it's the way in which you articulate yourself. It's the journey you've told, and it's so authentic. It's so real, and you can really understand how not only has it been difficult, but it's been extremely difficult for you, and your mindset to get through that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So many of us face adversities in life, but your mindset throughout this whole thing, your mum's mindset, your dad's mindset, to make sure you keep going, to make sure you fight for what you believe in, and to now be such an influential person, not only in this country, but globally. It's unbelievable.
I think people think, quite often with the things I'm doing or the amazing opportunities that have come my way, that they've all come really easily, or that I've curated them or planned them. I haven't. They're just a beautiful bonus of the core work that I do, which is all about inclusion and helping businesses and brands and our government to do better. Because what all I've done really and simply are align my passions to my purpose.
Yes.
And that's what I've done. There's no magic formula. So often people say to me, "How did you do this? How did you get on there?" I can't, there's no magic formula. And when I learnt that about entrepreneurship, when I realised everybody else is making it up as they go along, it's what gave me the confidence to launch an app that helps disabled people save money, because disabled people face unavoidable extra costs due to living with a condition or an impairment. On average, this adds up to £583 a month more. We are already in our own cost of living crisis, and then we've got another one. But who's doing anything about it? So I thought, okay, I've got an idea. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I didn't even realise I was setting up a tech company at the time.
Right.
I can't even use a Mac. But I knew if I didn't try and do this, I'd always regret it. And I'm not doing this for me. If I was doing this to make money, I would have done something long ago and made my money and be living in a hot country by now. Believe you me. Because, I really believe whatever I put my mind to, I know I will work hard enough to achieve what I already have. I've already had to. This has been my only way of operating in life. So why wouldn't I continue to do that? So I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because I want to help 25% of the population that are disabled in this country, and no one gives a fuck about, basically. Not even the government. We can't wait for charities to do it either. I work with a lot of organisations and disabled people's organisations and charities, and I love them and I support them, and I'm not bashing them.
Yeah.
But for a population of its size, 25%,
It's huge.
we're very fragmented. We don't have a unified voice. And financial stability is something that everybody needs. It's a human right. Money is non-negotiable.
Yes.
And you know what's really annoyed me in this whole narrative of cost of living crisis? Where are disabled people's voices? We're the experts of living in deficit.
Yes.
We're the experts of being twice as likely to be unemployed, having to apply for 60% more jobs. Did you know that for every £100 a non-disabled person has is only equivalent to £68 for a disabled person?
No.
Yet we have all these extra costs. That's all I'm trying to do, is to help to try and bring that equity to disabled people. So I've got some great businesses on board.
Yeah.
We're launching very soon. I've had so many setbacks. I lost all my investors when the pandemic hit. I was heartbroken and distraught. But it's been a journey. I've had so many grey hair because of it. I even applied to go on The Apprentice. I got through to the final round, and they were kind of like, if you get the call, you're on. If you're not, you're not. Because I just wanted the money.
Right.
And it was the most horrible things I've ever done. And I rate anyone. Props to Harpscore, who won it recently.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Hey, props to anyone that goes through that process. But that, again, it put me outside my comfort zone massively. But it's only just made me a more determined person.
You are so, so, so inspiring. I can't say it enough, really, honestly. And, you know, everything you just said around how you didn't ask to be a speaker, it's so funny. I'm literally going through the same thing.
Yeah.
I think I've always been someone who's loved public speaking, though. I love it.
Yeah.
I think my purpose in life is to inspire people. And I just love that feeling of when I look at someone and they're like, you know, and they feel so inspired by you, and they just feel that they're going to make a change. And for me, since I've been younger, I'd always want to read out little poems in assembly, and I'd always want to do a lot of public speaking wherever I could. But I never thought I'd make money from it. And from the podcast, I've been getting these opportunities from companies like McKinsey and TSB and AIG, which I just never thought in a million years that, number one, they would ask me to come and speak.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why I thought, you know, let me leave my job and let me ask companies if I can go and speak there, right? Because why not? You know, if people are recognizing there's a need for it, so let me try and do it. And I talk a lot around goal setting and cultural behaviors in organizations and employee engagement and retention. And something I'm really passionate about is strengths-based leadership. And it's all incorporated into that performance planner I did. But it's so funny when people ask me, you know, well, how are you getting this and this? And I'm like, none of this was planned.
Right?
The podcast was, I recorded 2 episodes. I thought I would do 1 season.
Yeah.
Didn't know where it was going.
Yeah.
No idea anything was going to come from it. And I have had so many opportunities come from it. And I think it's true because I'm just doing truly from my heart what I love and what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And I did a video today around how so many people are doing things for clout, right? I have never cared. Recently, my followers have gone up and everyone's like, oh my God, you're killing it. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, I really am not. Everything, my videos are resonating with people, and I'm getting hundreds of messages a day saying how I'm inspiring people, but you don't see that. So you're just seeing my followers going up saying I'm killing it, and I love the support, and I love that messages are being shared, and I love that it's reaching more people, but that number doesn't mean anything.
Also, it just goes to show how much instant gratification people expect these days.
Yeah.
You know what I'm doing and what's got me to where I am. This is years and years and years worth of work.
Yeah.
And perhaps some people are only finding out about that now.
Yeah.
And the same with you. And this is the beginning of your journey.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. And I'm just so grateful that you came on, and you have really inspired me so much. I can't tell you. Honestly, people always ask me what's your favorite episode. I have a new one.
Is it this?
Yeah, 100%. But no, it really is. And, you know, we always end this podcast with the truth or dare. But yours is going to be a little bit of a different one depending on what you choose.
Okay.
What would you like to choose?
Truth.
Good. I was so happy you said that because I didn't have a dare for you. I was thinking, God, what am I going to say? I say different because normally I ask people a very deep question, but I think this podcast has been so deep and so emotional. And I want to know what one of your most proudest moments was apart from graduating.
Okay.
So what was the moment where you felt the proudest you've ever felt before?
Recently, my mom, my niece, and my sister and sister-in-law came to London for a few days, and I was so excited for them. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And they w I organised it, I booked everything, I paid for it, and I was really proud that I could do that. It kind of felt like, look, Mum, I'm going to cry. I've come to London, I've come to work here, I've smashed it at the park, and I've been able to do nice things for them. And because, oh my God, I'm not a crier at all.
Sorry, I do that to people.
No, it's because I'm proud, and it's just something nice that I was able to do. But it was as a result of a lot of hard work. Like, moving here to London was one of the scariest things I've done, and oh my God, sorry.
You don't have to apologise.
And
do you want to stop?
No.
Sure.
I don't know. I just felt really proud that I was able to do that and treat them, and just give my thanks to them and appreciate them. So yeah, it's not like all these. And for me, it's not ever about that. It's not about the glitz and the glamour. That's a nice thing to have when it arises, and it's a bonus. But I will never forget where I've come from, and all of the people that helped me and supported me. And even when you messaged me, I didn't see your message until a lot long after, because I get so many lovely messages of support and people reaching out to me, and I see it all and I appreciate it all. And I just want to share that. I might not ever be able to get back to people, but it really does mean the world to me. So that's my current proud moment.
I'm so grateful you saw my message, and I'm incredibly grateful you took the time out to come here today and be so open and share so much emotion. And you are going to inspire so many people.
Thank you.
And I can't even put into words how amazing I think you are.
Thank
and
you.
I'm so grateful. So thank you. Thank you.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening or watching, if you could press the like, follow and subscribe button, it would mean the world to me.